Hello everybody, we're here again, Jim's Kitchen on tour. I'm here with Chris Bannister. We spoke before, me and Chris, about how Chris got into music and the early days. I was just thinking, Chris, because I just think everybody would be interested in, from then to now sort of thing, where are the places you've played, what's the memories you've got? If you can just, I know obviously you'll have loads, but it's just a few things.
Well, when I got into we got a little bit more established with the band I was in. We were playing sort of big, at the time it was the 80s, so we were playing like big nightclubs and stuff like that, and bars and all that kind of thing.
And were you the singer?
I was the lead singer and guitar player, yeah. We had a lead guitar player. Yes. And we occasionally will get back together again, but you know, that kind of music, as you get older, it's hard won, you know what I mean? It's hard to sing that stuff. Yeah. So, and hard to play it really. So it's like it was, then we obviously went to Canada a couple of times and we were doing bigger venues over there, sort of places like Barrymore's in Ottawa, which was like a blues club at about 400. So we did quite well over there. Yeah. And then the years in between, I mean, I've done like a lot of people do. I was playing at pubs and folky sort of venues and stuff. When I sort of went on my own, I was doing more acoustic stuff. Yeah. And then obviously over the last, I think we were talking about this before we started, I did that Music of John Denver show. Right. Which was, Billy Butler from Radio Merseyside has sort of got me onto that. I was in there promoting an album of mine, original stuff. And he said, everybody says you sound a bit like John Denver, you should go out and celebrate his music, you know. And I was like, I can't do a tribute at Billy, that's not who I am, you know.
I understand that. But it's surreal. When you sing, I mean, I listen to you sing John Denver, it's just unbelievable. It's so good. It's so.
And I've got no idea why I sound like him. I mean, it's not anything I've worked on. No. It's just I just must have a very similar larynx to him. You know what I mean? So when I started doing that, it was kind of village halls, which I'd learned from the Autumn Weavers, because I'd been to see the Autumn Weavers a few times. They play at Walmer Bridge and they do a few little Fox Lane in Leyland and all that, you know. So I thought, well, why not? We can't go and do this show because it's very acoustic. It's just me really and the guitar. I thought we can't go and do clubs and pubs, and that won't work. I can't do theatres because obviously that's too much of an outlay. You know, it's very expensive to do. So why don't we do every village in the UK's got a little village hall? Why don't we just do that?
They're great venues, aren't they?
They're brilliant. Yeah, I love it, and I still do them occasionally. You know, with Snake Davis, who's the sax player. Me and him will do village halls because he's like me. He loves it.
Do the John Denver stuff?
No, we do like a mixture of, because obviously Snake Davis he's played on quite a few. He was in M People and he's played with the Eurythmics. And he's played with Van Morrison and James Brown, and he's played with everybody. He's a you know. Yeah. And so we'll go out and we'll do small event, small sort of arts centre type venues. Yeah. I'm doing one in a couple of months actually, and it's like we'll do a mixture of some of his stuff that he's played and some of his instrumentals and stuff, some of my stuff, and we'll do a couple of John Denver songs. Yeah. We'll do like Sunshine on My Shoulders because that's obviously got a sax part in the version of that.
So it's just you playing guitar and him playing sax.
Him playing the sax, yeah. So me singing and playing the guitar and we'll do Van Morrison songs and anything that's got a connection to us. Do you know what I mean? And he's an amazing, very zen-like kind of person.
You don't do Baker Street, do you?
Well, funnily enough, he has a band called which he calls the Classic Sax Solos. It's like but that's more of a theatre show. Yes. Yeah. And I met him when I was on tour with Heather Small, who was in M People, and he was in her band. Obviously because he's got a long history with her. Yeah. So it was him on sax, and it was a guy called Paul Birchall on keys, who's played with Gary Boyle, and he's played with all kinds of different people. He's a great musician, and we kind of became friends on that tour. So when I finished that, Paul said to me, we have this show, Classic Sax Solos, would you be prepared to come and sing and play in that? And it's all stuff like that. So it's a lot of stuff that Snake does himself, that he's played on, but it's also, we do Baker Street and we do a couple of, we'll do anything that's got a sax in it, and it's a full band with a drummer and a bass player.
It's such a memorable instrument.
Oh, yeah. But I went to see, he said, come and see us play, and they were playing at Buxton Opera House. Oh, right. So I went to that. And it's a guy called Gareth Moulton on guitar, and he's like, he plays with the Cutting Crew. He's amazing. So Snake came up and he went, "What do you think?" I went, "I can't play like it. I can't do that." And he went, "You're not in it for the lead guitar. You're here for your singing, So, and I can play lead guitar a little bit. I can get by, what I mean. So occasionally I'll do that show, but less and less recently with that one.
And also I just wanted to talk about when we had our previous chat. You did the Cape Breton song,
Yeah.
which I thought was fantastic. That's from your most recent LP. But what sort of recording have you done over the years? Have you done a few LPs?
I've done that.
I'm saying LPs,
LPs,
albums.
yeah.
Albums.
That's my 7th album.
Right.
That one. So yeah, I've done quite a lot, over the years.
And do you record them in a studio or do you do them yourself?
Some of them have been, yeah. I mean, the first album I did was back in the 90s. That was with a guy called Bob Galvin. He was a keyboard player, but he was also a producer. So I'd met him on a previous thing that we did with the band I was in.
Yeah.
And he said, you really like your songs, if you ever want to do an album, I'd love to produce it, you know what I mean? So he did my first album, I think it was 93. That was done in he had a small studio, so we did that there. Yeah. And I've worked at Revolution Studios in Cheadle with Andy McPherson, and various other ones, over the years. But I had my own. I mean, the last album I did, which I did last year, is just acoustic guitar with some fiddles on it and stuff. So the way I work now is, I have a friend of mine he was in John Denver's band, keyboard player, Chris Knoll, and he's played with Faith Hill and all these other people. And he has a big studio. So what we'll do is I'll record. The album before that we did at a place called A-Star in Manchester. So that was with Simon Golding on bass and me and we recorded the basic backing tracks at this studio in Manchester, and then we sent it all off to Chris, and he put all the other bits on in Nashville. So that's how you've got to do it now. The days of going into a big, huge, expensive recording studio and spending weeks in there. Who can afford that? That was in the days of limitless budgets from record companies.
And we were talking before about an LP called Another Side of Bob Dylan, which we both like a lot. And comparing something like that to say something like, I don't know, Sgt. Pepper's, the all the production and yet they both stand up
equally well. Yeah. It's night and day, that, isn't it? Really,
Yeah, it's funny that. But you mentioned John Denver then, and I know you're probably sick of hearing this.
Not at all. No.
I mean, your career as a singer-songwriter, is sort of separate from the stuff you do with John Denver, and it's not a tribute act. It's you going out and you're doing the songs of John Denver, and you happen to have a voice that makes you sound very much like
very
John
similar,
Denver.
Similar tone. I'm not. Nobody sings those songs like he could.
No, but I've heard you doing them, and you can shut your eyes. And a lot of people, I know it's a cliche. There's a lot of people that say you can shut your eyes and it's John Denver. It's that close. It really is. But I also heard a tale. That you've been associated with John Denver's musicians, and one of them gave you.
It was the first time I ever went to. I remember looking up online when I first started doing the Music of John Denver show. Yes. I knew nothing about.
This was all in the UK.
This is we would just literally go and doing. We would just hire a little village hall, Sarah and me, my wife, and we would go and we'd set it up, and we'd sell tickets and then I thought, there surely must be something going on where he was, because his adopted hometown was Aspen, Colorado. He wasn't from there. Right. And I thought, there must be something that they do there. Yeah. Like, there must be concerts and stuff. So I was just casually looking online, and it turned out there was this thing called Aspen in October, which is like a yearly festival where musicians all get together. And it turned out like, members of his band were there and stuff like that. And I thought, maybe one day I could... it was like a dream, really. Maybe I could go there, and maybe I could, maybe I could play there. In the meantime, I'd put this song on the YouTube called "Christmas for Cowboys," which was written by a guy called Steve Weisberg, who was in John Denver's band. He's the big tall guy. Yeah, That when you see early footage of John Denver, he'll be stood there, and Steve was hunched over his guitar, and there'd be a bass player. You know what I mean? So that was all. It was a trio at the time. So that was Annie's song and all that kind of stuff. And he just sent me a message saying, I love the way you've done that song. And I was like, there's no way that's the actual guy,
What a great thing.
But it was, and I ended up somehow, I can't even remember, it's a while ago now. I can't even remember how I got to kind of speak to him on the phone, but he said, look, Chris, I love the way you do these songs. If you ever want to come to Aspen, you said, you come with me and we'll do a show. And it sort of came from there, really. So me and Steve, we did a show together, and But sadly, a couple of years after that, Steve passed away. He was in his 60s, and I just got a message off his. He was divorced from his wife, but they had a great relationship.
Yes.
And she contacted me. She said, "Steve's left you something in his will," and I was like, "Oh, great!" I didn't know what to expect, and it was this guitar. It was a 1937 Epiphone, you know. So that's my most prized possession, you know.
Yeah, I bet it is. What a fantastic thing. I mean, I like I said, I love listening to John Denver, and he's like totally different from my sort of main idol, Bob Dylan. You couldn't get chalk and cheese, you know.
Completely different.
But yeah, it's. Can you do us a little bit? That would be nice for the listeners. I know you were ready to do something else.
Oh, come, let me love you. Let me give my life to you. Let me drown in your laughter. Let me die in your arms. Let me lay down beside you. Let me always be with you. Come, let me love you. Come, love me again.
Wow. Well, everybody who's listening to this will certainly be impressed by that. Absolutely superb, really great. Now, I know you're going to do another song for us, but before we go on to that, I just want to ask you about this unbelievable shot. I'm going to pick up the camera here to just spin round so you can see little bits of what I'm looking at here. And this is only a part of the shop, and it's also a little performance area. Not long ago, I came here to watch Ken Little in concert.
That's right, yeah.
It's a beautiful little venue. But can you just tell us a little bit about the shop and the business?
Well, again, like everything that's ever happened to me in music, it wasn't by any design. It just sort of happened. I was down here. A friend of mine has a jeweller's here, and it's for the people who are watching, it's an old farm. Right. So they've converted it into like a shopping village, really. So there's various units here, and there's all kinds of different services and craft centres and all that kind of thing. And this friend of mine said, "You know what we really need here? We need a music shop." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be brilliant, because I'd have somewhere to come and buy strings, you know." And she was like, "No, you need to open a music shop." So it sort of stemmed from there, really. And I had a tiny little unit up the stairs in the other barn, and it was literally like half the size of this room we're in now. Yeah. And I had no stock. I mean, there's a few friends of mine said, "Well, you can have a go at selling my guitar if you want." Probably had 10, 15 guitars in there. Yeah. I started doing repairs, because I've always been into kind of setting guitars up and all that. It's something I've always done. I've always loved doing that. And it just kind of stemmed from there. Now we've got must be 200 guitars here. And
well, I know I can't. But I've been before, but each time I come, I think, my God, I can't believe how many beautiful instruments and they are beautiful, aren't they? I mean, it's not just, they don't just make music, they're like works of art.
They are, guitars are, yeah. It's a passion that once it gets hold of you, you know, which it did very early on for me, it never lets go. Do you know what I mean?
No, so they are truly beautiful things. And I'm just asking Chris, I've had a Gibson guitar since I was 20. So it's 52 years I've had this guitar, and it needs somebody to set it up. It's never been set up.
I'm looking forward to it, because there's a Gibson up there. They're beautiful instruments. So,
Chris, can you give us another song?
I certainly can. Yeah.
Thanks very much for this, Chris, and we'll do this again.
That'd be great. It's flown by, Jim. It really has.
It really has. But I've loved talking to you, and Chris is going to finish off with another song.
Well, this is a song from the Last But One album, which is what I was telling you before about Chris Noel. It was very much a kind of country album, more like country rock, really, whereas the new album is more a folk album. So this is a song called Hey Joe. So I think if you're going to steal a title, you steal from the best.
Definitely.
Caught the 6:01. When Molly and her mama woke up, he was long gone. He never even said goodbye. There were times in the years that followed she would cry. She thought of what she'd say if he ever passed her way. She'd say, hey Joe, if you saw Molly now, it would break your heart to see how much you're missing. Listen Joe, I can't forget you ran, but I'm hoping Molly can. And her courage knew no bounds. Yeah, the two of them, they faced it all as life unwound. She did the best that she could do. Through the gray, the scarlet, in the midnight blue, she taught her how to dance. Swore that if she ever got the chance, she'd say, hey Joe, if you saw Molly now, it would break your heart to see how much you're missing. Listen Joe, I can't forget you ran, but I'm hoping Molly can. Seasons roll by so slow and so steady. Suddenly you find it's October already.
That's tremendous. Now, I'm hoping me and Chris will go and get together again soon.
I hope so, Jim.
Later
Yeah,
on in
thank
the
you very
year.
much.
I've really enjoyed talking to you, Chris, and thanks very much for letting me in. And Sarah as well, thanks for setting it up, and speak to you again soon. Bye, everybody.
Cheers.